Layoffs are tough, and not just for the people who are let go. As a manager, you're now facing a team that's smaller, maybe a bit shaken, and probably more than a little uncertain about the future. Some might be wondering if they're next. Others might be struggling to pick up the extra work. And you have to lead them through it. Managing a team after a layoff can feel like walking a tightrope. You want to acknowledge the emotional toll, but you also need to maintain productivity. You have to deal with people who might be angry, anxious, or just exhausted. And you have to meet this with empathy and efficiency. But where do you even begin? How do you help your team move forward when everything feels like it's moving backward? How do you keep things going with fewer resources without burning out your remaining employees? Hi, I'm Mandy Gosling, host of Manage This, a series for everyone playing manager in the middle. Each episode will help managers tackle everyday problems that seem to pop up when you're both leading a team and being managed in return. This episode, we're trying to answer the question, so you laid people off. Now what? Now, quick caveat, we're generally talking about what happens after a well-run layoff. If you are, say, a former ex-employee, this might not look particularly familiar to you. And few organizations will get everything right. And we'll talk about that as well. But for now, let's assume you're working for a company that generally has it together. We chatted with Anil Verma, a professor emeritus at the Rotman School of Management. He studies human resources and labor issues with a particular focus on dealing with technological changes, a common source of layoffs. Dealing with the aftermath of a layoff actually takes a lot of prep work. And that's because it's crucial that you get the messaging right. And that information needs to come from trusted sources who actually know what they're talking about.
Large layoffs happen in a context, and there is a story behind it. So it's really important to understand why it is happening and the context in which it is happening. Layoffs happen for a reason. There are many reasons, many different types of reasons. It can be financial stress in the company. It can be a change in technology, or it can be a shift in the markets. Or sometimes it's a combination of all of the above. And if we know why we are entering this period of large layoffs, then we have a better way of explaining it to the others.
Remember, not all layoffs occur because a company has fallen on hard times. You often see reorganizations after a merger. You might see a company pivot to a new business model because they're anticipating challenges in the future. And this is how they're getting ahead of it. You might even see companies downsize because new technologies are automating certain types of roles. Whatever the cause, if you don't understand the reason for the layoffs, it's hard to provide messages of comfort or assurance.
As the manager who has to convey the message of a large layoff, it is really important that I understand where it is coming from, and I can then better explain it to my employees as to why this layoff is happening. And I need to get this story from the right people. In other words, from reliable sources within my organization. I need to be comfortable with why it is happening and within what context. Because if I am comfortable, I will be able to explain it and in a persuasive manner to my own employees.
And you won't always agree with a company's decision, but you should be able to explain it to your team in a way that they can make sense of it. To that end, since a well-run layoff shouldn't be a total surprise, if there are pre-layoff briefings, for the love of God, attend them. And if there aren't, see if you can get some time with your manager or department head to get as much information as you can. Go into these briefings prepared with a list of questions you have and a list of questions your laid off and surviving employees are likely to have. With your managerial hat on, your questions might be,
are we going to be doing the same amount of work with fewer people? Or will there be an opportunity to restructure by redefining jobs, by combining certain other jobs? And finally, what would be the financial impact of the layoffs on the employees who remain in the organization? By financial impact, what I mean is, will there be opportunities for some people to acquire larger roles? In other words, promotional opportunities for some. Will there be opportunities for some to acquire additional skills through training? and improve their career prospects. So there are many ways in which a large layoff can also benefit the people who remain in the organization. And if we can share this information with them, they will become internal change agents who will help us make this transition.
Your laid-off employees, meanwhile, will probably be more interested in where they can learn about resources, how to get reimbursed for outstanding expenses, how they can access outbound training, etc. And your remaining employees will likely wonder about their future. So make sure you take the time, either at these briefings or with your own leadership separately, to ask things like,
the survivors of the layoffs are thinking, what's going on with my company and what's going on with my department and specifically with my job and my future career? Does this mean that I keep doing the same job, or will I have a new job definition? What are the implications for my salary, for my wages? What about my team? Am I working in the same team with the same number of people, or will there be a new team? Are there going to be budgetary cuts? Would we have fewer resources to do the same job, or would we have additional resources to take on those duties? Most importantly, what is the future for me in this company? Is this a company in declining health, and sooner or later I may have to look for a job myself? Or is this a newly restructured, more competitive organization where there will be growing opportunities for me in the future? Because all of these questions are going through my mind, and if I can have some clarity, some information about this, then I can get more motivated about the change and getting ready for the new organization.
And it's okay if you don't have or can't get all the information, but be aware of what you don't know and why you might not yet know it.
There is always a great deal of uncertainty around any large layoff situation. So it is okay if you don't know the future with perfection. It's okay to leave certain things ambiguous and uncertain. But the more important thing is to level with your employee and to share in a transparent and honest way and sincere way what you know and what you don't know. Because if employees have a good understanding of that ambiguity, then it's much easier for them to deal with it, and it's much easier for them to sign on to the new journey that lies beyond the large layoff.
You won't know if the turnaround plan is going to work. You might not know if future projects or departments are on the chopping block. You probably won't know if future financing is going to be something the company looks to secure. So be honest with your employees, but be armed with as much information as you can get your hands on. So, you've attended the briefings, and now the layoffs have happened. Exiting employees have been asked to turn in their badges and pick up their personal items, hopefully with the HR support you've provided them and the information they need about their exit packages. Now it's time to sit with the folks who've remained and let them know what's what. Whether they got the news at an all-hands meeting or you're telling them for the first time, it's important you sit down as a team shortly after the layoffs occur. You probably don't want to approach that conversation with a bounce in your step. Know that your remaining team is on edge and try and adopt the tone that feels appropriate. Personally, I'd lean towards compassionate, yet hopeful. We're repeating ourselves a bit here, but Anil cannot stress enough how important it is that you get that messaging right and that you frame the context of the layoffs appropriately.
If you don't provide clear and sincere answers to their questions in time, there is a great risk of either losing your employee or of alienating them. The employee is wondering if there is any future for them in the company, and they would think maybe this is a signal for them to seriously look for work elsewhere. And for talent that has options in the labor market, they would rather take that than face the uncertainty in your own organization. If they don't have options to leave and they still remain on the job against their will, they would become alienated. You will have loss of productivity and, most importantly, loss of innovation. That is, their best ideas. You don't get the best ideas from people who feel highly uncertain about their future in the company.
A good organization will probably provide key messaging. These layoffs will help us focus our business on profitable product lines, markets, whatever. We're hitting some economically challenging times, and these layoffs are a reality we have to deal with, but know that we're all working together to turn things around. If your company isn't giving you those key messages, feel free to ask your company leaders for what they want to convey. You might have to do a bit of reading between the lines, but always make sure the information you're providing is as accurate as possible. Now, you and the team, but mostly you, have to figure out what's next. This process will likely start before the layoffs, but know it's also going to continue for the next little while. If people on your immediate team are being let go, what happens to their workload? It's not likely going away entirely, so you probably have to redistribute it in the short term. Make a plan of how this will happen and who, short term, is going to pick up the ball. And there might be some very specific post-layoff chores that need to take place. IT teams are likely going to need to reset accounts and make sure people who need to be locked out of systems are locked out of systems. Sales teams are probably rejigging their client base to cover gaps. Hopefully, you've gotten this list of to-dos in your pre-layoff briefings. But if not, put pen to paper and figure out the immediate and short-term gaps the loss of some employees is going to cause. And as you're doing this work, be prepared to answer your employees' key questions here. How much extra work will I need to take on, and for how long?
As a manager, what I would want to know is post-layoff, if there would be opportunities to redesign the workflow and the work processes. We have always new technology available to automate certain parts of the process. We also can eliminate processes and procedures that don't add a lot of value for our customer.
Basically, you need to know how your employees are going to continue doing their jobs and possibly absorbing other people's jobs without burning them out. Try, to the best of your ability, to get your teams to work smarter rather than harder, which might mean ditching unproductive product lines or doing away with certain types of meetings. Look across your entire department at your output or your inbound processes and try and find the areas of efficiencies that can make your remaining team's lives easier, letting them focus on new tasks or picking up work from teammates now gone. If you need people on the team to pick up extra slack and maybe put in a bit of extra time, be reasonable about how long that additional workload can continue. Are we talking a few weeks while the dust settles, a few months while entire processes are rejigged, or indefinitely? And if it's a few months or indefinitely, revisit the process of finding inefficiencies and eliminating time wasters.
Any large layoff would trigger a transition to a new way of doing things. The question as a manager you should ask is, what resources are available to me on a one-time basis to transition from the older system to the newer system? Where can I go to get those resources, whether they are financial or human or other resources?
This is usually baked into the overall cost or write-down of a layoff, and it can be and should be used to look at new technologies that help automate processes. Or it might be used to help retrain or upskill remaining employees to fill the gaps caused by the layoffs. It's important that managers recognize their own limitations and constraints. A well-managed layoff is going to come from senior leadership, and you as a manager will be well supported, armed with information about next steps, while employees, both staying and leaving, will be given the resources they need to move forward. Now, if you work for an organization that suddenly and without warning locks everyone out of their Slack accounts on a Friday evening and doesn't give you the heads up ahead of time, well, there's only so much you can do and communicate. You should still try and track down as much information from senior leadership as possible and do your best to secure those additional resources to help rejig processes. But in the absence of that support, we suspect that the same "what does my future hold" question your employees are asking are ones that you'll be asking yourself.
So a poorly managed large layoff has great implications for you as the manager. If you have to do the same amount of work with fewer people and no opportunity to restructure, this would be a very stressful situation and would be unsustainable in the long run. If it is a poorly managed layoff, it may turn out that you find that your values are not aligned with the company's in the long run. This will certainly lead to your own alienation and possible thoughts of exiting from the company.
And remember, regardless of the type of company you work for, layoffs are hard. They take a mental toll not just on the people who are let go, who are probably worried about their futures, and the people who remain, who are probably worried about their futures, but also on yourself, who is probably worried about their future. Okay, you didn't lose your job, and that's great, but you had to deliver a bunch of bad, sometimes devastating news. And now you're operating in leaner times under potentially stressful constraints. It's okay to not feel great and to talk to someone about it.
Layoffs are hard to do. It is a tough day at work, and it takes a heavy emotional toll on the manager. So you have to take care of yourself and make sure that you are in the right frame of mind. Perhaps you have someone you could talk to. It can be your mentor, it can be an executive coach, or even a friend who can help you put things in perspective. It is important to nurture your own well-being during this process, because the better state of mind you are, the more confidently you can come across and explain things to your own employees, which generates confidence in them.
Finally, just because someone's been let go, it's not usually the end of their careers.
Although large layoffs are a traumatic event for everyone involved, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. In every adversity, there are opportunities. So there might be new opportunities for the survivors. People who go through the layoff and exit, they might find other opportunities or take the occasion to transition to new careers. There is life after layoffs, and we should not lose sight of that as we go through this process.
Have you ever had to participate in a round of layoffs? Did your company handle it well or poorly? Is there information you wish you'd asked? Weigh in the comments below, and consider subscribing to this series, our whole YouTube channel, or the Rotman Insights Hub. Just click the link in the description to get more thought leadership and research-backed management tips from the Rotman community delivered to your inbox every other week. We'll see you next season.